Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we're returning to War in the Pacific Admirals Edition, our play-by-email game against XTRG. We're on January 4th of 1942, and this should be an interesting turn. We okay, first off, it looks like he's detached a couple of cruisers from his light carrier force we detected off the coast of Borneo, and they're closing range to engage with a transport convoy of ours. This isn't going to go well, so they're probably all going to get sunk. It's fine. These guys already brought over 20,000 supplies into the Philippines. They may die now, but they did their job, so they can die knowing that they helped, hopefully helped, lengthen the siege at Bataan into something that will force XTRG to keep a substantial amount of resources tied up in the Philippines. So that's good, right? But as I was saying, I think this turn should be an interesting one. So this battle aside, we've sent our carrier force in for a raid on Tarawa, where our submarines had detected enemy ships at anchor. And because we knew there were ships at anchor there, I'm assuming there's better targets there than at Kwajalein, where we detected some anti-submarine patrols, but there weren't any ships actually tied up or at anchor there, which is why we directed our carriers toward Tarawa instead. Still, hopefully far enough away from the Japanese fleet carriers in the South Pacific to avoid any real damage, but hopefully they can do something and hit something worthwhile. And also, the good thing is it's going to give the air crews some experience in bombing operations in a low-risk scenario, so we can get the crew experience up a bit as well. With that being said, let's go ahead and fast-forward through this battle here as we assume, okay, yeah, these AKLs are doomed. These light cargo ships are each worth either 1 or 2 victory points, so very little. And at least it chewed up a bunch of his ammunition here. You can see they had to fire a lot of ammo. So at least these heavy cruisers and destroyers will probably have to pull back to a larger port to resupply. I'm assuming they may have to go all the way back to like Cam Bay or Saigon to get enough. Jesus. The Sarjo, a submarine of ours, apparently hit 2 mines off the coast of Pericles, or however you pronounce that. And a Dutch submarine here is being depth charged off the coast of Malaya. Another Type 4 mine? Alright, well, I think the Sarjo is probably doomed if she's really hit 4 mines. I'm hoping there's a bit of fog. Yeah, okay. Down she goes. Alright, well, I think that might be the second submarine we've lost this war, so we haven't lost too many, but we got to be careful. We don't want to. Those are the arms of our fleet. We got to make sure that we don't lose too many of them, because come 43, they're really going to be able to strangle Japanese industry and the economy if we are smart with them. And sending them into well-mined ports apparently is not very smart. Alright, so apparently he's landing some additional reinforcements at Mersing. It's another fast transport convoy, so no large transports or anything worth torpedoing. That'll just get our torpedo bombers shot to pieces. But I guess probably a couple hundred more troops are landing there. Nothing that's going to allow them to overpower our 20,000 soldiers or something that are in defense there. And really, the whole Mersing operation is about just making sure we box his troops up long enough until the rest of his forces make it south. Meanwhile, the S-40 is firing some torpedoes at the Japanese there, apparently doing nothing, not getting depth charged either. Meanwhile, you can see here that our carrier force has been sighted off of the island of Tarawa, so this should be an interesting turn here coming up. I'm guessing if they're being sighted, that means the weather should be good enough for them to strike out against Tarawa, and we'll see what happens. Meanwhile, our ships are moving into Auckland, and we've got some SBDs flying recon over Tarawa as well. They'll be sort of the eyes and ears of these air raids, which will come in here. We're spotting some enemy patrol boats. Hoping there's more than patrol boats here. An AM reported hit as well. Okay, so we'll have to see how that plays out. Let's fast forward a little bit here. Some fighter sweeps going on in over Hamidin. Trying to see what else is occurring here. More fighter sweeps over Hamidin on the island of Sumatra. There was also a battle at Clark Field last turn that we repulsed a Japanese division pretty bloodily, although they did reduce the fortifications at Clark Field, which means that the Japanese will have an easier time if they attack there again. Maybe enough to overwhelm us. We've issued the order for the majority of our troops there to fall back to Bataan, because frankly, there's no hope of me holding holding out at Clark Field, and the main thing is buying some time, but I've got a third of my infantry there, and I don't want that third of infantry to be chewed up in inferior fortifications, because if they are, it'll really hurt my ability to hold Bataan. So we've gotten the supplies into Bataan. The fortifications are up to level 3. They should be up to level 4 before Japan can bring anything to bear, and so I'm okay falling back, because we're not going to get to 5. We just aren't. Getting to 5 would be negated by losing a third of our infantry strength at Clark Field, if we could even hold long enough for that to occur. Meanwhile, we can see here he is bombing Singapore with 15 Ki-21 Sally bombers, but there's no escorts, so our fighters are hopefully going to chew these guys apart. You can see multiple Sallies are being damaged, and we're just kind of chewing up this bomber formation that has no combat escort. So we've already destroyed over 100 Sallies in bombing raids over Singapore, and we're getting a few more licks in against these Sallies as they come in towards Singapore here. So air-to-air combat done. Looks like the Japanese bombers turned back. 5 of them anyway. We destroyed 3, so we destroyed about 20% of the bombing force before they pulled back, and they didn't get their bombs on target. Meanwhile, 34 Lily bombers are hitting Medan. The Lily's an older, less effective Japanese Army bomber, but he may have to use some of those given the massive casualties that he's suffered to his Sally force. He's bombing at Medan there. We have a few aircraft up there, some Dutch aircraft here, but not all that many. We don't even have 14 Blenheims here, so I'm not sure why it's... We don't even have 21 130... Oh, okay, this is definitely fog of war here. Weird that we would get an incorrect report on that. Meanwhile, you can see here we've got bombers going in on Tarawa. That's about 120 bombers, about 90 Dauntlesses and 35 Devastators. You can see here they're approaching the target at Tarawa, and they appear to be hitting a Japanese light cruiser with some general-purpose bombs penetrating the deck and exploding below deck, so that's a good sign that he's got at least one light cruiser there. You can see a 1,000-pound bomb just went into it. There's also a destroyer that we're hitting there with some 500-pound bombs, a cargo ship that we're hitting there, some supply dumps, a light transport that we're hitting, some more. There's an AV, so a seaplane tender is being hit. A mine layer is being hit. So a troop transport is being hit. So it looks like there's a wide range of targets here at Tarawa that our 120 bombers are doing a good job in hitting with various targets here. Let's go ahead and fast forward a bit, and let's see what the actual results are here. So 5 bomb hits against the Japanese light cruiser Tenru, heavy damage. She didn't sink, but at least heavy damage. 1 bomb against the light transport, the Karasuguren. 2 against the destroyer Inzuma, heavy damage. 2 bomb hits against the cargo ship Yokohama Maru, heavy damage. 1 bomb hit against an AKL Amakashu Maru. 2 bomb hits against a AV, which is a seaplane tender, which is really important on these sort of exterior islands where he presumably has a large seaplane population there. These guys basically take care of those planes. Heavy damage to that. The mine layer Takashimi is sunk with 2 bomb hits. The troop transport Huzi Maru is hit with 2 bombs. The troop transport Buenos Aires is hit with 2 bombs. The troop transport Montevideo is hit with 2 bombs. The destroyer Ikakuzui hit with 2 bombs. Troop transport Kashima Maru hit with a bomb. And cargo ship Taimi Maru is hit with a bomb. So we didn't sink a whole lot, although I'm going to guess some of these other ships may still sink. But we definitely damaged a lot of ships here. There's 4 troop transports that we hit. In addition to the 4 troop transports, we also hit 4 cargo ships, 2 heavy, 2 light. We hit 2 destroyers, a light cruiser, a mine layer, and a seaplane tender. It also looks like there must have been some Japanese troops on board these ships because there's some casualties there. We hit the port with 8 hits, 2 port supply hits. So a very good result indeed. What did we lose in terms of aircraft here? This is a huge strike against them. I mean, for everything that we lost in the South Pacific to the Japanese carriers in and around Nomaya, this is, I would argue, a bigger hit to the Japanese. If we can finish these four transports off, he doesn't have a ton of transports, and if we can finish these 2 destroyers and this light cruiser off, I mean, those are substantial losses. Japan only has like 30 cruisers all told, and we've already sunk 1 of them. And all we suffered were 2 SBD-3 Dauntlesses damaged, no planes shot down. So that's a very good result for us, a very exciting result for us in this turn. Meanwhile, 8 B-17Ds are flying to Singapore and hitting Miri for the second turn in a row. 5 oil hits, so I'm hoping that does some damage to the oil refineries there and limits the output of Miri, which is the most substantial oil production facility that he has taken so far on anywhere in the Dutch East Indies. That's on the northern coast of Borneo. So hopefully that will make him less efficient there. It's, I think, 100, well, all told, it's like 300 oil per day production, but it's not H6K4M destroyed by Cap, nice, but it's not at 100%. They lose some level of their production capacity when they lose the base. Meanwhile, more patrol boats being reported as hit by our aircraft. I don't think these are terribly reliable reports, but nonetheless. The turn's progressing. Let's go ahead and fast forward a little bit more. More airstrikes or more recon here in the afternoon phase. I think I'm trying to decide what to do with my carriers. The question is, do I withdraw my carriers right away? Or do I try and get another strike off to finish off the ships that are in port there? Because a fair number of those may still survive. Alright, so we lost a few Hudsons trying to bomb those fast transports. 4 of them, wow. We also bombed with 6 bombers north against Kota Baru. 5 got through. None hit a target as far as I can tell. We also lost a few damage. We need to tell those guys to stop flying up there. That's the same reason I didn't fly my torpedo bombers against the troop transports at Mersings. They're torpedo boats and destroyers. You're not going to hit those very often with air-launched torpedoes. Maybe if you've got the GM3 or GM4 Nells, those are very good platforms, but not with a wildebeest. Sounds like a couple more ships may have sunk. We're getting the ship sink... oh. The Pennsylvania's flooding or repairs are failing. We'll have to take a look at that. Okay. And a Japanese deliberate attack at Wangkao here with 3 divisions. We'll fast forward there. The Japanese reduced the fortifications to 0. The Japanese lost 1,400 more casualties against only 1,000 Allied casualties. So the Allies lost about 100 squads. Japanese lost about 150, but only 9 of those destroyed. Wangkao is going to fall probably next turn. He should continue the attack. Without any fortifications, that base will fall next turn. Meanwhile, Maoben is being attacked by Japanese Marines here. We've got a tank battalion here, but that's got basically no supplies, so you can see the tank battalion surrendered here in the eastern corner of Luzon in the Philippines. So we lost 2 guns destroyed, 44 vehicles, and 1 unit destroyed. Basically no casualties for the Japanese. And that appears to be all the land combat action this turn. So a few fortifications expanding. We're going to go ahead and jump out and kind of catch you guys on the flip side as this turn ends, because it's going to kick us out of the save. So I'll catch you guys on the flip side. All right, and we're back. So first things first, let's take a look at the aircraft losses before we take a look at our carriers. This turn, 20 of Allied losses, 19 Japanese, 9 Hudsons, which were on those bombing raids at Kota Baru against his shipping. He lost 7 Sallies, 6 air-to-air, 1 ops over Singapore, a couple of float planes on his end, 4 float planes, 2 ground, 2 ops. I'm wondering if that means we sank the light cruiser, because the light cruiser would have float planes on it. He also lost 4 zeros in ops losses, which is kind of a high number for ops losses for zeros. We lost 3 Dauntlesses, all ops losses. He lost a handful of other aircraft. All right, so if we take a look at ships sunk, I did mention the light cruiser, but we didn't actually claim the light cruiser, interestingly enough. We did lose the Sarjo off the coast of Taiwan, and we lost the light transports that were transiting to Singapore. So that's that. If we jump back and we take a look at our carrier fleet here off the coast of Tarawa, I'm relatively comfortable. His carriers are way down here. They're moving southeast. It says destroyers, but we know these are the carriers because that's what has been hitting us. So if he does decide to sprint north, that's a long run. That's probably 2 days at least. And his air units out here toward Kwajalein or whatever are probably far enough away that I'm not too worried about him hitting my carrier task force. Also, my fighters are set to a 90% cap anyway, so if he does come that far south, it'll probably be without fighter cover and we'll shoot his bombers to pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move 1 hex west, and then I'm going to bomb Tarawa from 1 hex further out. We're going to try and finish off the shipping that's still left in port. Our submarines are claiming there's 8 ships still in port. I don't think there's really 3 light cruisers. We kind of had a good look at what was there last turn. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to bomb Tarawa again. And then after that, we're going to go ahead and withdraw to Pearl Harbor. Meanwhile, we've got these I guess you call it fleet oiler that's heading south. It'll meet up with the carriers, but honestly, the carriers can make it back to Pearl Harbor on their own if they have to. They have sufficient fuel for it, so there's that. We can see there are some aircraft that have been lost. It looks like 1 dive bomber, 1 Dauntless was lost here off of the Enterprise. The ops losses have not resulted in any killed crew, however, so that's good to see. Meanwhile, if we go ahead and we take a look at the pilots here, some of these guys flew in missions. It doesn't look like there's any actual experience change for these guys, for whatever reason. What about this other task force here? What about on the Lexington? Any improvement for any of the pilots here? Some decrease in some of their actual skills. Yeah, it doesn't look like the bombing actually helped anyone's experience, but I like to think it helped. Probably helped the aircraft carrier in terms of its crew skills or whatever. Anybody here? Nobody? Nobody at all. All right, well, some pilots here gained some experience in some of the other squadrons here on the, was it the Saratoga? But long story short, we lost a couple of planes, not many. We've got a couple of planes damaged here. So we're going to go ahead and launch one more raid against Tarawa, finish up the shipping there, and then withdraw back to Pearl Harbor via the southern route, which is the least exposed to enemy submarines, I think. He'll probably race toward Johnson Island because there's been a lot of submarines operating in and around Johnston Island. So that's where we're going to move south and kind of come up this way. We'll sprint if we have to. If we see his carriers disappear, we'll sprint back. We still have over 50% of our fuel on board the carriers, 66% for the Enterprise. The Lexington is at 77%. And the Saratoga is at 77%. So the carrier fleet has enough fuel to get back, and we'll run if we have to. Meanwhile, no further carrier actions off the coast of New Caledonia, and we've pulled all of our shipping out of the Fiji line here, so relatively safe as far as that's concerned. The one exception is Pago Pago, which is further east. We have a lot of shipping here. We have some anti-submarine warfare patrols to keep enemy subs off, and it looks like they've pulled their subs back. We have some cargo coming off of these ships. We also have about 10,000 troops coming off of some transports here. We've got some construction battalions, the 34th Infantry Regiment, some base force units. You can see here that we're kind of filling this up here with additional troops. We don't have a great situation from a port facility perspective, so it's probably going to take the better part of a week to get all these guys unloaded, but you can already see Pago is a very strong defensive position now with these 2 infantry regiments, the 8th Marines and the 34th Infantry. Means that we're pretty safe there, I think, from any enemy attack, especially given the fact they're American units, so they are very high quality. We still have a few of the Marines left on board, largely the support stuff, motorized support and howitzers, because we don't have the facilities to unload them. Meanwhile, Pago is upgrading its airfield. It's up to 53% of the way to level 2. Port is at level 2, upgrading very slowly, and the fortifications are upgrading toward level 3. If we look at Suva at Fiji, it's up to a level 2 fort, about to hit level 3 fort, and also trying to upgrade to a level 4 airfield. Nadi, I think, is level 2 fortifications now, working toward level 3, with level 1 airfield working toward level 2. Nomaya is a level 2 fort, so we just got to level 2 fort, working toward level 3. And Comac, which has the Lone Indian Brigade, is about to finish its level 1 fortification. Probably won't go much further than that with the limited engineering resources available there, but nonetheless, a level 1 fort will be useful if he tries to cheaply take Comac in any way. Meanwhile, a fair amount of shipping off the coast of Australia, some amphibious craft here. They probably want to go ahead and disband some of the stuff, get these guys in ports, get them safe from enemy submarines, and kind of hide them away. We also, in 1 week, will have 75 P-40 Warhawks that'll arrive in Australia. So if he does try and make any play with the carrier force there, as long as he waits a week, we'll be in good shape. Singapore, not much changed. Mersing, not a ton's changed there either. I'm trying to see, yeah, poor supply situation on Mersing, but we're not going to try and attack. We're just going to kind of try and hold them in place. Meanwhile, in China, we fell back from Cheng Chao when he took that base now in the last couple of turns. We've pulled back to Luoyang, where, again, we have really poor supply situations, but at least it's harder to flank us, and we've got a large force there, 2,600 VPs, or assault value. What about, looks like at Yichang, we're just shy of 2,000 assault value, so that's good. Flying Tigers are over there. Ooh, speaking of the Flying Tigers, so interesting ideas come up this turn. I think this is the big thing to talk about this turn. He has had his light carriers off the coast of Borneo for 2 turns now, and they seem to be kind of sitting in place. They moved south, they attacked those convoy ships, and then they just kind of stood there. And they stood there last turn too. I don't know if he's trying to block supplies from getting into Bataan. That's kind of my thought, is he may be trying to block supplies. We have submarines that are... Where are you going? Huh. All right, you don't have much fuel. What about you? Where are you going? Neither of these guys have much fuel. But we do have subs coming up here that are going to be sort of blocking the way if he tries to go down the Mascar Strait. I don't think he will, but this is a tempting target. And I don't know if he's going to stay here. His direction's still southwest, which would run him aground. But... we know there's 2 light carriers and a host of heavy cruisers operating with this task force here. They are his CVLs, the handful of CVLs that the Japanese have, probably about 40 to 80 aircraft here in this formation. We don't have any land-based aircraft that can do anything against them, but I know you guys have been asking about the HMS Hermes, and she's finally arrived from the Indian Theater. She comes with 12 Swordfish torpedo bombers. We have 6 Swordfishes also in Singapore of the Australian Royal Air Force. We flew these 6 torpedo bombers. Actually, I guess they're British. We flew these 6 torpedo bombers south to join the Hermes, so we now have 18 TBDs. Now, I know there's some issues with supply and torpedoes and whatever they can carry, so some of these may have to carry 5 or 1,000-pound bombs. But nonetheless, we've got 18 TBDs on the HMS Hermes. And we're forming the HMS Hermes into a task force with 2 heavy cruisers, the Exeter and the Cornwall, 4 light cruisers, and some destroyers. And we're going to send this task force to the southern tip of the Mascar Strait. The objective here is going to be to race north and see if we can get a strike off with 18 bombers against him and surprise him before he can respond. So what we can do is, if he sits here, and this is a big if, guys, because this is going to take 2 to 3 days for everything that I'm planning to get into place. Because it's going to take 2 to 3 days, there's a very high likelihood that this will not happen. But in the event that it does, we're going to race these guys up into the Mascar Strait, and we're going to try to knock out one of his CVLs. It's a pretty big risk to the ships involved. It's a very big risk to the HMS Hermes. But the HMS Hermes is kind of expendable. She doesn't have a fighter wing. She can only carry 20 aircraft. She can only carry 12 torpedoes. So she's not exactly the best carrier to use against the Japanese. Her victory value is 121, so it's pretty respectable. It's actually not that much less than the Haruna, which was 180, I believe. But it's not huge. The other ships we're sending, the Cornwall and the Exeter, 34 victory values. These guys are valuable, but not the end-all, be-all. So we're sending them this way. If he does attack this task force, we're not just leaving him here, we're not just hanging him out to dry, okay? So we are going to weaken the defenses at Singapore because the airfield is still at 100%. We know his bomber force has been heavily damaged. We just shot down 6 bombers this last turn, 6 more Sallies shot down. So presumably that's, a meaningful reason for him not to launch a bombing raid against Singapore in the next turn or two. So what we're going to do is we're going to send 15 Flying Tigers with the H-81A3s, probably our most experienced fighter formation. We now have a new ace in this formation, Foch, BC Foch, second lieutenant. And we have W. Gibbons, who has 4 kills as well. This is a very experienced crew. We're going to send the 15 ready P-40Bs, that's the H-81, out of Singapore. and we're going to send 11 Buffaloes of the Royal Air Force with likewise experienced crews, although kind of crappy aircraft. And we're going to fly these 26 aircraft. First things first, this turn they landed at Swinking. Next turn they're going to fly into Balkapin. So we're going to have 21 fighters based out of Balkapin. We have sufficient aviation support there. We've flown 3 Dutch Buffaloes in there as well. So we have about 30 fighter aircraft, 30 ready fighters at Balkapin. And then probably not next turn, but maybe 2 turns from now, we're going to have the Hermes sail up the Strait of Mascar, probably park right about here, a couple of hexes away from Balkapin, and launch a strike against this Japanese force. We will have all 30 fighters at Balkapin set to 100% long-range cap over the formation. So in the event that the Japanese do get a bombing raid against the Hermes, they're going to run into heavy fighter cover. Ideally, we'll have 15 to 20 fighters up against any Japanese raid. And based on what we saw them raiding our troop transports with, 15 torpedo bombers come in, but there's 30 fighters providing top cover. Maybe he comes in with 10 Zeros as escort, but presumably he's keeping some of his Zeros back as cover for his own carrier fleet. So I should be able to hold off any enemy attack. And if I don't, then his fighter cover over his own formation is probably weak enough that we'll break through. And I would very gladly trade the HMS Hermes for a Japanese CVL. If we can even just knock out for a few months one of his CVLs, that'll have an impact on his operations in the South Pacific. He may be tempted to pull one of his heavy carriers, maybe the Akagi, maybe the Soryu, maybe the Hiryu, maybe pull one of his fleet carriers out and join this small little mini Kiributai, which will weaken the other carrier force, or maybe we could even get lucky and sink one, or maybe we'll hurt a heavy cruiser. I don't know, but I need to take a shot because the CVLs are more vulnerable, and if we can have a heavy cap over our own fighter formation, then I think, or over our own formation, then it's worthwhile sending these guys in because the Swordfish is the best torpedo bombers that the Allies have at this stage in the war, and it's not even close. So if we can get 18 of them on target, we'll probably lose half of them. But if we can get a torpedo or 2 on target, he might even lose a CVL. It's a ways away from any major base that he'd be able to save them at if they stay down here. So we'll see. In addition to that, if he's tempted to race out to try and engage us, he'll have to run over a line of submarines, of which these submarines are all high-quality subs. They're 1 Dutch, 2 American S-boats, so they all have high-quality, reliable torpedoes that might be able to finish off a carrier if it's damaged, or, put a lucky torpedo into a heavy cruiser like they did over here. So that's the situation this turn. That's the main update I have for this turn. There's not a lot else going on. Still no indication of any invasion at Nomaya. The Yorktown is still not at Pearl. She'll probably arrive this turn, and then once she arrives, I think I'll send her west to join the other fleet carriers that are going to be pulling back, just so we've got all of our carriers concentrated in one place. I would love to race my carriers west or north or whatever against these other formations of ships, maybe even make against a raid against truck. I just don't have the logistical horses in place to do that this turn. The Sarjo did sink from Japanese mines, unfortunately. The Pike, which suffered bad damage from mines off truck, is in the process of retreating. If we go to ships sunk, we look at just all dates, and we just look at submarines. Currently, we're showing 2 Japanese fleet, actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Japanese fleet boats sunk. We've lost the Sarjo and we've lost an S-boat. So an obsolete S-boat and the Sarjo. 2 American subs versus 5 Japanese subs. If he really has lost 5 subs, that's a huge blow to him. I think Japan has like 150 subs total from the beginning to the end of the war. So you'd be looking at, I can't do math very well, but what is 5 out of 150? It's more than 1%. So yeah. It's less than 5%. It's like, 3% or something like that of his submarine force 1 month into the war, so that's pretty substantial. We're still claiming the Maya sunk. That's kind of interesting. We know the Kartori was sunk off the coast of Mersing, but we're also claiming the Maya, which we haven't seen her. I know she took a torpedo, but it'd be kind of cool if we had actually sunk her. Battleships, we're still claiming the Congo and the Haruna. I know the Haruna sunk. I believe the Congo survived. I haven't heard XTRG sort of saying anything about that. In terms of carriers, nothing sunk so far in this war. In terms of destroyers, we're claiming... Oh, wait. The Oashu? When was that sunk at Tarawa? But that wasn't last turn. That doesn't make any sense. We're claiming the... okay. We're claiming a destroyer sunk at Tarawa. We actually have claimed 3, 4, 5 Japanese torpedoes, 4 Japanese destroyers and 1 torpedo boat sunk. And if we've sunk 2 more destroyers, I mean, that could be a pretty big blow to him. If he's already lost 6 destroyers in the war so far, that would be pretty awesome. We've lost 4, 2 at the Battle of Mersing, 1 at however you pronounce this, the ISIS, to Japanese aerial torpedoes, and 1 Australian destroyer near Toman Island. DEs, nothing. APDs, APs. APs, we've lost a fair bit in some of the recent actions near New Caledonia. You can see we lost the President Coolidge, we lost the Rangita, we lost the Hugh Scott, 2 Australian APs, British AP, some Australian and British lighter APs. So some of these are unfortunate losses for us. Japan has lost 1 APD, that's it, so not very much. But if we knock out 4 of their APs, I know some of you are saying it's going to be hard for us to counterattack with losing quite a few APs. At the end of the day, we've only lost 2 American troop transports so far, so we're doing okay there. I mean, we're not to the point yet where things hurt too much. If I take away these, we've lost a fair amount of cargo ships to his submarines mostly. But Japan's lost some too. Not nearly as many, but again, remember the American economy is vastly stronger than Japan's. So any loss for us is greatly magnified if he loses something. Or sorry, his losses are magnified over our own. Meanwhile, Japan has lost 2 AMCs so far in the war. 1 to a Mark 14, 1 to a Mark 9. Those are pretty nice armed merchant cruisers. We've lost the float plane tender, the Langley, as well as the submarine tender, the Platypus, and an AVD and AVP. Mine warfare ships, we're claiming 2 Japanese mine layers near Savi, 1 near Mersing, which was our own, the Kungwo. A DMS for the Japanese. Okay, what about patrol? They lost the PB Nagata Maru near Savi. And that's all that really matters there. And that's it. So those are ship losses so far. List top pilots. We have 4 aces now, 4 guys with 5 kills, and we've got a bunch more with 4. So pretty good small group of aces that's being developed. 3 of the aces are in a single American squadron with only 5 aircraft. Ship withdrawal, anything coming up? Let's take a look. The Dominion Monarch at Sydney needs to withdraw in 28 days. That's the only thing. And then the Joseph Dickman needs to withdraw in 50 days. So those are the only 2 things in the next 2 months. And then ground withdrawal. 3 days. That's a convoy. That doesn't really matter. Those auto withdraw on their own. Several inactive things. 6 days, okay, 45. So nothing really there in ground units. Air withdrawal, I guess. 10 days, we've got a bunch of Bolos in San Francisco that need to withdraw. And then some B-17Es at Pearl Harbor in 12 days. Might as well withdraw them now. Hey, nice. We get 26 political points for withdrawing these guys. Solid. Actually, let's just go ahead and do that right now for all those guys who are coming up. Not them. Because apparently we get political points when we pull these guys out. Why can't I withdraw these guys? Where are they right now? San Francisco? Can we not withdraw these? I'm kind of confused. I don't know the rules around withdrawing. Guess I can move them to eastern U.S. I'm assuming they can withdraw from there. And is that it? Those the only other aircraft that are withdrawing anytime soon? I think this guy's the same one that's in the eastern U.S. So move them there. Group withdrawal. 26 days for the next thing. Okay. So those guys are all there. That should... I wonder if I can, like, merge them now that they're all here. Ooh, I can withdraw them now. Oh, wait. These guys don't have to withdraw soon, do they? Kind of confused. Did some of these guys merge? What did I do? I don't know these rules. Did just moving them there auto withdraw them? It looks like just by moving them to the eastern U.S., those units withdrew. Okay. I guess that's the same thing as withdrawing them. Cool. Where are we at political points-wise? 341. Not a huge amount. We'll save some of that. So the main thing is the carrier force to the east of Pearl that just struck Tarawa is going to bomb it one more turn. Then they're going to withdraw. The carrier at Batavia, the Hermes, is moving with a task force of her own to the Mascar Strait, where she may try and make a play against the Japanese light carrier force there. The Hermes has strengthened itself with 6 additional torpedo bombers pulled out of Singapore. Meanwhile, we've pulled 26 ready fighters out of Singapore. We've moved them to Borneo. That will provide top cover over the Hermes. And I think that's kind of the situation right now. Not a lot else going on this turn, so we'll probably go ahead and wrap it up here, and we'll see what occurs next time around in our next turn with XTRG. Until then, though, guys, this is the Historical Gamer saying thank you for watching, and until next time, I'm out.